Deep dive. Today, we're really getting into gear on a movie that's just been, well, zooming past expectations at the global box office. We're talking, of course, about the new F1 film. It's been turning a lot of heads. So for this deep dive, we've looked at, the big box office reports, really detailed audience surveys, and industry analyses comparing it to past benchmarks. Our mission, basically, is to unpack these, frankly, staggering opening numbers for F1 and figure out why it seems to have resonated so strongly. What does this tell us about, the movie business today and what audiences want? Okay, let's unpack this. It really seems the F1 movie is hitting all of the right notes and maybe even finding some new ones. So let's kick off with those headline numbers because they're massive. The F1 movie, this is Warner Bros. Distributing for Apple Original Films at launch with a huge $140 million global opening weekend. And look, that's not just big. It's actually the best opening Apple Original Films has ever had since they, really leaned into theatrical releases.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here, I think, is how this performance validates Apple's whole push into theaters. It really shows their films can properly compete on the big screen, maybe even dominate.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
A real statement from them. And it's not just Apple winning here, that $140 million global start.
Yeah.
It's also a record for a Brad Pitt movie. It actually beat World War Z. Remember that one? It opened globally with $112 million.
Right. And if you break down that $140 million, it was about $85 million from overseas and $55 million from the 3-day domestic run here in North America. It's interesting, too. Some rivals, well, their estimates for the domestic opening were a bit lower, maybe closer to $58 million. So, yeah, the actual result was definitely a pleasant surprise for many. Shows its strength right out of the gate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But, the numbers only tell you what happened. To really get why F1 took off like this, we need to look at the audience reactions, the exits. And here's where it gets really interesting. The film got an A cinema score, which, as you know, that's based on opening night audience surveys, a really strong signal of immediate satisfaction. Crucial for word of mouth.
And that consistency, that's what's really striking. An A is great, full stop. But think about it. Producer Jerry Bruckheimer and director Joseph Kosinski, they just came off an A+ with Top Gun, Maverick. That kind of back-to-back success, and well, that speaks volumes, doesn't it? About their ability to deliver what audiences are looking for, even in maybe unexpected genres.
Yeah, it really does. And there's more positive feedback, too. It got 5 stars on PostTrack. That's at 92% positive. And listen to this, a 78% definite recommend. That definite recommend score. People say it's like the most powerful indicator of audience reaction. Basically, if people are actively telling friends, you have to see this, you've got a real hit on your hands.
Exactly. That's the fuel for the long run, isn't it? Positive word of mouth. Those metrics are so important because they suggest the film has legs beyond just the opening rush. It means sustained interest.
And you got to give credit to Warner Bros. Too, right? They've shown they can really launch original films. Thinking back to things like Argo, those Christopher Nolan movies,
Yeah.
they have a knack for it. Plus, you've got Brad Pitt's Plan B involved and Lewis Hamilton as a producer. I mean, that's a serious team behind this.
Okay, so massive global numbers. Let's zoom in a bit on the domestic performance here. Did it keep up that pace in the U.S. and Canada? Well, it did $25 million just on Friday stateside, which put it really close, like $100K shy, of being Pitt's best opening day ever. That record was World War Z back in 2013, with $25.1 million on its first day. So while World War Z still holds Pitt's record for the best domestic opening weekend at $66.4 million, F1 looks like it's going to be his second biggest domestic debut. Still huge. And something else that's really crucial here is the role of the premium formats. PLF's premium large formats and IMAX, they drove like 58% of F1's domestic gross, and IMAX alone. That was 25% of the total domestic take. It really raises an important point, I think, about how much these premium viewing experiences are driving that initial box office buzz and success. People want the big screen experience for these kinds of films.
Yeah, definitely paying for the immersion. And speaking of defying expectations, what about that old idea, the sort of stigma about racing movies?
Yeah.
The assumption that maybe audiences aren't that interested in racing car films? Well, you can pretty much throw that out the car window now.
Yeah.
Because F1 just completely debunks it. The data actually showed 40% of the audience went because it was a racing movie. And then 35% went because, well, it's a Brad Pitt movie. So the genre itself was a major draw.
Oh, it's classic Bruckheimer, isn't it? It reminds me so much of what he did with pirate movies. Remember Pirates of the Caribbean? Everyone thought pirate movies were dead. He brought them roaring back. He seems to have done the same thing here with racing movies, revived the genre under his watch.
Totally. It really shows his unique touch. And just for comparison, F1 opened higher domestically than Ford v Ferrari, which it did about $31.4 million in its opening. And it's also ahead, not adjusting for inflation, mind you, but ahead of Bruckheimer's own Days of Thunder from way back in 1990. That opened to $15.4 million and ended up around $82.6 million domestic, $158 million worldwide. So F1 is playing in a different league. So where's the audience? Is it concentrated anywhere specific?
Well, the reports say F1 is playing pretty evenly coast to coast, but it seems particularly strong in the South Central regions, the Mountain States, and out west. And interestingly, AMC Lincoln Square in New York City was one of the top grossing theaters, pulled in almost $119,000. Okay, but who's actually going to see F1? What do we know about the audience makeup? Right, the demographics are quite revealing. So, age-wise, there's a strong youth turnout. About 29% of the audience was aged 13 to 24. And the overall split was fairly balanced. 53% were over 35 and 47% were under 35. That younger audience, and that's really interesting, vital for buzz and, longevity. And then if you look at diversity, it seems to have broad appeal there too. The breakdown was roughly 52% Caucasian, 23% Latino and Hispanic, 11% Asian American, and 10% Black. Connecting that to the bigger picture, those numbers really suggest the film managed to attract a wide cross-section of moviegoers, not just one specific group. That's key for a blockbuster.
Okay, so wrapping things up a bit, F1 isn't just a box office story, not by a long shot. It feels like a real testament to maybe original filmmaking still having power, definitely star power, and successfully taking a genre that some thought was, maybe niche, and making it massive again. We've seen how that strong audience reaction, the cinema score, the high recommends, combined with pushing those premium formats, how that can really fuel a film's success.
It absolutely raises a big question, doesn't it? We're in an era that feels dominated by franchises, by existing IP. Does the success of something like F1, an original concept relatively speaking, does it signal that maybe audiences are hungry for new stories? Especially when they're, backed by top creative talent and high production values like this one clearly was. What does this mean for the future of movies, for cinema? It's something to think about.
That's a really good point to end on. Makes you wonder, what other assumptions or, like you said, stigmas in entertainment are just waiting for the right project, the right data to be completely turned on their head?
Yeah.
Lots to chew on there. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.